Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Football Experience, brought to you by On the Pod. We're running about half an hour late on our side because at first Kayla's microphone wasn't coming through, and I was like, "All right, this has happened before." We tried to play around with his settings, shared screen, all that stuff. Kayla obviously got frustrated because who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? And then I decided, all right, let me just change one setting on my end in Discord, and then it started coming through my speakers of my laptop, and I was like, well, shit, this can't work.
Plot twist. It was Nev's fault the whole time.
Yeah.
We're here now. Frustration averted.
Yeah, that was my bad. All right, so we have a lot to go through because we have to do basically a review and then also a preview of the big games this weekend. Caleb, I'm going to let you start things off and where you want to take things. So I'm going to hand the reins to you.
That's cool. I'm focusing on some bigger picture stuff for both the review and the preview this season. And by letting me lead, I'm going to lead by asking you a question to start with. Do you think that this season there's somewhat, and it's an early theory, so go easy on me, but this season it seems that there's somewhat, and I'm wondering if you agree, a shifting of the guard, so to say, from last season we had Real Madrid win with the Champions League with a very experienced team. They also won La Liga. That midfield trident were much revered with how experienced they were. Benzema, even players like Alaba, Courtois has been around for a while. So players in their prime or maybe a little bit post-prime. But this midweek fixtures in particular, and there's a few things that go into this early theory, but this midweek in particular, maybe even the start of this season, it seems like the young boys on the block, the young kids on the block, are having their way somewhat. Because we look at the starts that Vinicius Jr. has made at Real Madrid, 22 years old. Do I need to really talk about Erling Haaland in the Premier League? 9 goals already, and he's 22 years old. We know how good Kylian Mbappe is and can turn it on at any point where he wants to. I know it's the French league, but still only 23 years old. The one who got me to start thinking about this from the weekend, Dusan Vlahovic, 22 years old, scored back-to-back weeks with almost identical world-class free kicks. He's looking like the star that he's meant to be at that age. You look at Bayern's start to the season, and I think their most impressive player when he's played has been Jamal Musiala, 19 years old. You go all the way back to the Euros, but he's carried that form through, particularly the second half of last season where Xavi turned up. But Pedri, 19 years old, you can throw Gavi in there, although I don't quite put Gavi in that mix yet. I don't think he's that world-class young prospect yet. So I want to get your opinion on that before I go into why I'm starting to think that this might be the case for this season, because it does seem early that a lot of these young kids, and I mean young, like 23 is the oldest that I just mentioned in Kylian Mbappe. Even if you want to throw in Barella and Lautaro Martinez from Juve, if you want to throw in Rafael Leao and Theo Hernandez, who the oldest were Lautaro and Barella at 25. Leao's 23. Hernandez is 24. So all these top clubs in Europe, they're standout performers.
Oh no, we're having a bit of technical difficulty. Hang on.
Seem to be players who prospect or just sort of early theory.
We just we started getting a little bit of lag just towards like the last 10 seconds of that, but I think I get the gist of what you're getting at. So I don't know, maybe if you want to repeat yourself, you can the last 15 seconds, just so our viewers can get it.
Well, just basically, what do you think of that theory that this could be the passing over from one generation to the next, and this could be the emergence of this new generation of superstar players of a lot that I just mentioned.
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is possibly because it's a World Cup year. So some of these players, they're probably still trying to cement themselves either in the starting 11 for their national team or just trying to get into the squad in general. So that could be a reason why they're maybe getting off to a really early start performance-wise. So they can already get on the radar now, because I think we have in 2 weeks we already have an international break where there's going to be like Nations League fixtures and friendlies and stuff like that. So if these guys aren't already on the fringes of the squads, they need to be getting call-ups now for these friendlies in September. And the only way to do that is by hitting the ground running. I'm not too familiar with the international game for some of these players. Like, I'm pretty sure Vlahovic is a starter. I'm not sure whether Vinicius is a starter, though. He might be. But then another one who's really impressed me over the last 5 weeks is Martinelli for Arsenal. I know, and there's no bias there, but like, he only got his call up earlier in the year, I think, for a friendly. So he's going to be trying to push for a World Cup squad as well. The World Cup squad, maybe not starting 11, but at least the squad. Jesus as well. I think he might be cemented as the number 9 already, but even so, he needs to keep that position. So that could be my only, I guess, theory. But then, like, you have someone like Haaland, who Norway isn't going to the World Cup, but he's hit the ground running. But he's hit the ground running because he's an absolute beast. He missed most of the last season through injury, so his hunger to play and score goals and just dominate must be like absolutely through the roof. Sort of like a frustrated teenager who just discovered the opposite sex.
Well, you throw it to Haaland, but you're missing your captain as well, who's part of the same national team, and he's not going to the World Cup, and he's only 23 himself.
Yeah, and like that's another one to throw in there as well. So, but there might also be like this like subconscious changing of the guard. Like, you have Messi and Ronaldo, who are going to play their last World Cups this year. Modric as well is going to play his last World Cup. For a lot of these players, it's their last or second last season. Like, Modric just signed a contract extension for 1 year just so that he has football under his belt going into the World Cup. Otherwise, he would have finished with the World Cup, and like, his Champions League win would have been his last season for a club. So it would have been similar to Zidane playing in 2006. Like, he finished with Real Madrid. I know he didn't win like the Champions League, but he finished with Real Madrid, and then he finished with France, and that was it. So that would have been the same if we had a World Cup now in July. So that's my, I guess, take on it, that maybe the World Cup is having a big influence. But then, yeah, there's players that aren't going, that are still hit the ground running as well.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And it's also a good point that we must take into consideration that it is a World Cup year, so we might get performance bumps. Much like anyone who follows basketball, you might see like players who are entering a contract year, they'll put in huge performances in the season just so they can secure another lucrative contract, and then they'll drop off after. The only thing I'll say to that is but I feel like maybe not every player. There are some players in national teams who are pretty cemented. But on the flip side, you might see older players having to go out there and perform like that to get themselves into the national team squad. So I think everyone's sort of on this hook of, I got to perform well to be in the national team. I was thinking about the World Cup in terms of this theory, but not in the same way that you were thinking about it. I was thinking in terms of the way it's going to congest the fixtures, both before and after, but particularly, both before and after is going to congest the fixtures. So my thinking was the younger guys will be better equipped to deal with a game every 3 days, as we're going to come into now. Everyone knows about what youth can do for your legs. You don't feel any pain. You run through everything. You just want to be out on the pitch all the time. No matter what level you've played at, you can feel it as you get older that you need to pick your moments. You can't run all day every day like you used to. So that was my factoring in when I thought, you know what, this season could be really good for some of these young kids because they should have the energy to play almost as long as they want to. Whereas maybe the older guys have to pick their moments, have to be rested. I think what we already saw De Bruyne be rested on during the midweek fixtures. I don't know. I don't think it was an injury. I'm hoping it was. Well, I'm hoping it was, but I'm hoping it wasn't from a footballing aspect. But yeah, he didn't play. So, and he's, I think, 30. So I think we'll see a lot more of that with players around that age. Whereas the younger kids, I think they've got to just play through nearly as much as possible. And, you know, I just think for that factor, it could be a really big season for them, especially when you think of the talent that I mentioned as well. And I hadn't even thrown in from your club, those players like, and even you could put Bukayo Saka in that group. You could put Jude Bellingham in that group. So there's just so many good young players at the moment. It just feels that way, especially with the conditions around the season. And you look at maybe the most stark example, and I'm not saying that Southampton have these world-class young players, but we did talk about after, I think, the weekend's fixtures where United went to Southampton, that Southampton are a really young squad, or they look young in key areas. But on the flip side, we saw Chelsea. And Chelsea, especially that back four, very old. Azpilicueta and Thiago Silva both playing in midweek games after Thiago Silva played 90 against Leicester when they were down to 10 men. And I thought it sort of told somewhat. And that's a sort of example of a team with not the world-class youngsters, but still younger players in the opposition. And they went out there during a midweek, 3 days after the last game, and they were able to sort of make that tell. So, and I thought Azpilicueta in particular looked his age, even though he didn't play on the weekend. But yeah, so there was just a few examples, a few good performances, obviously, from these young guys. Vlahovic in particular, who I mentioned. Haaland, of course, with another hat. It's just unbelievable, really unbelievable what he's doing already. I think the stat was going into the game that him and Aguero had done identical things at the start of their careers. I think Aguero...
He's set a new record now for most goals in 5 games or something like so.
Yeah, exactly, because Aguero, I think, in this game scored 2 goals and Haaland one betted him and scored 3. So... just a few things in it because obviously, like I said, we see the contrast to Real Madrid, such an experienced team winning the main prize last year, and now we have all these kids coming through. But on the flip side as well, and it's interesting because the season's going to be in 2 halves. This is the half where you can just put your foot down and go straight through to the World Cup. And then the second half of the season, we get knockout stage of the Champions League. We get big games with league table implications. Maybe that's the second half of the season is where we're going to see the players who are around 30, around in their peaks, really come into their own. So that might be something to think about further down the road as well.
Yeah, I guess it's an interesting talking point. And yeah, like you said, maybe in the second half of the season, that's when the experience will then start to shine through rather than the youth. So, yeah, I guess it's something to think about. Like, there's probably a lot of factors as to why we're seeing these performances. Like, I know when I played last weekend, like it was just Sunday League. I needed 3 days to recover, and you know, I'm only 30, and I miss those days when, like, I used to be able to remember, like in like especially primary school, but even high school, like, not just for your school team, but like you'd play like those all-day tournaments. So like you'd play like 2 or 3 outdoor games, but then you'd have the indoor tournaments as well. You'd play like 5 or 6 games. Like it was insane the amount of football that we're playing, and like we'll just be like the next day we could already like go to training, like we could walk fine and everything. Now like the next 2 days after a game, I can like barely walk. So yeah, bloody what's that? Father Time is one opponent you could never
undefeated.
Defeat.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I think they're trying nowadays. They're trying.
Yeah, they're trying.
Because I was going to say when you were going through those names of Messi, Ronaldo, and Modric, what I was going to say about them, and particularly obviously Messi and Ronaldo. I mean, Modric sort of was really good and then went away a bit as Real Madrid went away, and then it was great again, obviously. But those players, their peaks never should have been that long. There should have been other players coming through who sort of took the mantle, but because particularly Messi and Ronaldo are so damn good players. You think of players like Neymar has never really done it yet. You think of Suarez, he had a little peak in the middle there, but Messi still outlasted him. You think of even a Paul Pogba or someone like that. These players who they should have taken the mantle, but these players just kept them down below their level because they were so damn good. So yeah, they're trying to defeat Father Time, but it will still remain undefeated.
Even with tennis, like Nadal is what, like 35, 36, Djokovic is like 34, and like these guys are still winning Grand Slams. I know Federer, I think he's had knee surgery, I think like last year or something. So like he still hasn't retired officially, I believe, but he was still winning Grand Slams till 37. I think he won his last Grand Slam. So
I have to fact check.
I think it was the Oz Open, if I'm not mistaken, and then he made the final of Wimbledon that same year. Lost it to Djokovic, I think. But yeah, these guys are still in their like mid to late 30s. These guys are still winning Grand Slams, and that's just like, I think that's just a benefit of sports science as well, like knowing all these recovery methods and all these training methods to, I guess, prolong your career as well. Like another example is Paul Scholes and Ryan Giggs. Like they played till what, 38, I think. So that's
there's
another
definitely
example.
instances. Yeah, there's definitely instances throughout history, no matter like what time of history. I just think it's maybe becoming more commonplace, obviously, with more technological advancements.
Yeah, I think they were talking about it like remember how a couple of years ago, like the peak age of a footballer was like 26 to 29 or 30, and now it seems that it's like 29 to 32, something like that. Like you're seeing all these guys peak at 30 or 31. A lot of these new guys.
Yeah, and definitely position dependent as well.
Yeah,
obviously defenders and goalkeepers. But like on the flip side, you could also say the game's played at such speed, you're putting your body under such strain, you're putting in so many hours from such a young age that there could be ramifications in the other direction. So, and I don't know if we're seeing more like ACL injuries and stuff like that, or we just didn't notice them back in the day. So that's something where you'd have to really look into the research. But I don't know, just throwing out an early theory, and I guess moving away from that, I'm going to let you pick off, so sort of a semi-review. We'll just hit a few games quickly, but what was the most eye-catching thing that you wanted to talk about from the midweek fixtures?
Well, the most eye-catching thing was Haaland's hat-trick, I guess. The guy just like keeps like not eye-catching in terms of like, oh, the big surprise. But like the fact,
I agree. It's 1A or 1B. Definitely.
Yeah, but the fact that he's like, maybe because it was against Nottingham Forest and these guys have signed, I think they ended up signing 21 new players. Yeah. So I don't know how many outgoings they had, but I think they had just as many outgoings. Or like last season, they had a lot of loan players, so they didn't have their own. So that's why they needed to sign a lot, like pretty much a whole new squad. But even so, like him getting another hat-trick, him breaking the record for most goals in 5 games. There was another player there that held it alongside Aguero. I can't remember the guy's name. Sorry, City fans, if there is anyone listening. But yeah, like this guy's already breaking records after 6 official competitive games, if you include the Community Shield. He just seems like an absolute like train, like a locomotive. Like it's hard to describe like how scary he still can become, considering I think he's only 21. I think
22.
22. So
Yeah, I believe so.
yeah, like once this guy gets even more experience under his belt, develops his body even more, because like I think around like late 20s is when like males fully develop their body, like their muscular structure and everything, and this guy's already like looking like an absolute beast. There's no words to really describe the like what he is currently doing and what he can be doing. I wouldn't be surprised if he hits 40 Premier League goals the way he started.
Come on, settle down.
Look,
settle down.
he already has 9 after 5 games. The only and like the thing that one of the things that I think Darren Bent mentioned was that the only reason why he won't hit 40 is because now that Champions League fixtures are starting to roll around, the World Cup's going to roll around, even though he's not going. Pep might be more inclined to start resting him for Premier League games and playing him for Champions League games. So he might not play all 38 games. He might only play 30, so he might only reach 30 goals. So 1 goal a game. So, but yeah, the way he started, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me.
Honestly, his mentality strikes me as one who... His mentality and the fact that he's only 22 and the fact that he has a month off in the middle of the season because he's not going to the World Cup, for me, all those conditions are telling me he might play nearly every Premier League game. So, you know what? I said come on at 40, but I mean, he's got a chance. Oh, the conditions are perfect for him to get 40 goals. And I guess somewhat my prediction is sort of just coming true, but it's 5 games in. We've got to see... And when we go to the preview, I'm going to sort of hit this point hard, but the season obviously has started, but it hasn't really started yet. But it's a fantastic start, and he's looking like that machine, exactly what you said. And the thing that strikes me is just the fact that he's always in the right spot. The ball just seems to be falling to him, and he's always just in a spot to score a goal. And his teammates can just put balls in without even thinking about it. Just put it into his area. We know he'll be there. And that's scary when you have a team like City who are full of such good players who can now play on instinct because this guy is going to give them an option in the box.
And now they have an aerial threat as well.
Like, yeah. And a real threat in behind as well. Everything. Yeah. This guy's everything. He does absolutely everything.
I was thinking about it midweek, and especially after he scored that hat trick as well. I was like, for me, this guy is a better. I reckon he's a more complete player than Mbappe. I think Mbappe is a little bit one-dimensional when you compare him to the overall game that Haaland offers. Because Mbappe, he has speed and trickery, but Haaland has speed as well. Like he's incredibly quick over 5 or 10 meters. I think you just need to see his goal against West Ham, his first goal against West Ham when he got slipped through. Like his acceleration was insane. He has strength as well. He has aerial threat. His finishing is insane as well. Maybe I haven't really seen, or I haven't been paying attention to his right foot. So I'm wondering about his weak foot, like what ability he has there. But I think he's more complete than Mbappe.
That's a difficult one. I still got Mbappe ahead because he still was the 1B option to Antoine Griezmann for a World Cup winning team. And for me, that means a damn lot. So if Haaland has a great season, continues it, helps City at least win the Premier League, if not the Champions League, then we've really got a discussion. But Mbappe also has a chance to win a World Cup in the middle of that season. Yeah. So when you mention one, it seems like you got to mention the other. And for me, if it was a race, Mbappe would be a little bit ahead because of already having those accomplishments at such a young age. I think as well, if we're talking about the technical aspects, I think Mbappe's a better 1v1 player. I don't think we've seen that from Haaland, but Haaland's all about goals. So I'm not disparaging. I'm just saying that's a weapon that Mbappe probably has in his arsenal that we haven't seen Haaland use. But yeah, and I think pretty soon there may be another striker to add to that list, and it may be Vlahovic, because I've been so impressed by him at the start of the season. And I said the only problem for Vlahovic is he doesn't play for a very good team. And I said if Juve were going to accomplish anything this season, it will be on the back of him. And it looks like it's going to shape up that way. So, but yeah, he's a little bit behind, and he's trying to catch up to those two. There's no doubt about that. The only reason I sort of erred when you said the most eye-catching thing was Haaland, and I guess you're probably right because of all the stories that came out of it. But I thought Liverpool's win at Anfield in the 98th minute against Newcastle was absolutely massive. It was a potentially huge moment in the season, because that game, again, we got pretty dodgy Liverpool for the first probably 60 minutes.
I was going to
Pretty
say
dodgy.
60, yeah.
They weren't terrible, but the goal they conceded was bad. Van Dijk, I don't know where he's going. He doesn't get back into position when he comes back out. He just runs into absolutely nowhere. Henderson looks like an old player now, and to ask him to play every 3 games is tough. And we're talking about all these young players. Well, a team who doesn't have young players at the moment is Liverpool. I mean, our marquee young player is missing out on all this fun because he did something stupid against Crystal Palace. So Liverpool look like they're under strain, and they have to fight that hard to win games. But to win that against Newcastle, to sort of set Newcastle back a bit, because let's not forget they're a team who, if things go right for them, they could be in the hunt until late for a top 4 spot, because they've been mighty impressive to start the season. So those kinds of victories are huge to not only push yourself forward, but knock the other team back. So I thought that could potentially be. See, we were talking about the Bournemouth result, and I guess we both hit it on the head in thinking there's not much to take away from this, because I don't know how much of a springboard it is. They beat a very bad team by a lot of goals. They scored a lot of goals. But this was a good Newcastle team. We were dodgy for 60 minutes, but then we really rallied for the last 30 minutes. And I thought we were rewarded justly. I know that not everyone's going to think that, and especially Newcastle fans aren't going to think that. But 2 things could be true. I thought Liverpool deserved to win the game. I didn't think Newcastle deserved to lose the game, because I thought they were really good. But for me, that was why that was the most eye-catching thing of the midweek, because that, for me, has the potential to be a huge result for Liverpool. They really needed that win.
I thought Liverpool, yeah, like you said, they were poor for like 60 minutes. And yeah, when I was watching the game, I was just thinking something is lacking, especially in the first half. I was thinking you're lacking concentration. I saw Trent either misplace a couple of those crosses that he's most famous for from that De Bruyne position where it's a little bit inverted. I saw him misplace 2 or 3 crosses and hit the person that was defending not the first post, but pretty much at the edge of the box, first post. So lack of concentration, lack of speed as well. It just seemed like lack of speed off and on the ball. So when you'd receive the ball, it seemed like your players would hang on to it for a second or 2 seconds longer than what I'm used to them hanging on to the ball. Last year they would release it immediately and find an outlet immediately. This year, or at least in this game, they the player would receive the ball, they'd hang on to it, and then they'd be like, "Oh, there's a pass over there," and it just seems like that instinct is lacking at the moment. At least that's what it seems like to me, as an outsider who doesn't watch them week in, week out like you, but who watches a number of their games. And Newcastle seemed on it. It's just a shame that they had a couple of players missing. Guimaraes was missing. I think that was through injury. Saint-Maximin was missing as well. I think as well through injury. It's too early for suspensions. So Trent never really got tested with Saint Maximin missing, but I think Dan Burn, he gave him a little bit of a test, but I think Trent would have struggled with Saint Maximin, and it really showed that even though they had Isak up front now, who looked pretty impressive, he looks like he could be a really good player. But also the fact that Liverpool played with such a high line, I think the conditions suited him. I'm curious to see how he would play against the low block. But yeah, like what you said, I reckon a draw would have been a fair result. I wouldn't say that Liverpool necessarily over the whole 90 minutes. I wouldn't say that Liverpool necessarily deserved to win the game, because I think like it was a stat where I think this was like the first game in I don't know how many games that Liverpool didn't have a shot on target in the first half. So they didn't even have a shot on target. They didn't really create anything. And yeah, like I said, they just seem like sometimes something's not clicking, whether it's because your midfield is aging on and it doesn't have the legs that it did, or maybe it's the fact that you guys played every single game last season, and maybe you needed a longer break than other teams, and like that's starting to show in your legs. Who knows? But I also want to get your take on the time wasting as well, because you obviously know that there was only 5 minutes added on, but you guys scored in like the 97th minute and 5 seconds or something like that. So pretty much the 98th minute. But there was time wasting going on not only throughout the end of the second half, but also in injury time as well. Do you think that time wasting should be a second bookable offence? Because I've only seen refs give one yellow card for time wasting. And do you think that they should pick up on it super early as well? And should goalkeepers get like a red card as well for time wasting?
So, just to touch on a few things from the game, obviously Newcastle were missing key players, but Liverpool have their fair share of injuries and suspensions as well. So I think it cancels each other out when you look at it from that aspect. One thing I'll say, and why I thought Liverpool deserved to win the game, because I agree, and I even said it, that they weren't nearly at their best for probably the first 60 minutes until they score the goal. But you could see around the time where we scored the goal, and then maybe after we start pushing a little bit, the Newcastle players are blowing out of their arse at this point. They are tired. They are looking for obviously they're happy with a draw, so they want the result, but they're also looking for any opportunity to stop the game, because they're struggling to deal with the intensity, and that's a Liverpool that we don't think were playing particularly well. So just to put it in perspective a bit, like a Liverpool bad performance is still pretty good in the grand scheme of things. It's still at a level that should be challenging for top four. So I just thought that with the last 30 minutes combined where we were really pushing hard, that's why I thought they deserved to win. But like I said, Newcastle didn't deserve to lose either. With the time wasting, I think there's a few ways to sort of remedy it. Firstly, I think a yellow card is a yellow card for time wasting. So if you're already on a yellow card and you time waste, you're an idiot, because you give the referee a chance to send you off. If they take that opportunity, great, because we should be getting rid of this out of the game. In terms of the ones that really piss me off are the injury sort of fakes just to time waste. And I guess we've already touched on it, but I think it would be a good idea to hide behind the sort of, we're looking out for player safety. If you need medical treatment on the pitch, then you need to go off the pitch for 5 to 7 minutes and be examined, because you needed medical treatment. So I think that could stop players from going down, because then all of a sudden, hey, I either leave my team down to 10 men or the manager might sub me out. So there's no point me going down right here. I think refs have been quicker to pull the trigger on time wasting. I've seen a few yellow cards be given pretty early in a second half for teams you can see the goalkeepers clearly time wasting from an early point. So I think they have made it a point. But they could always be tougher on it. But look, honestly, I thought the game probably the thing was, I thought he played the right amount of added time, but the ref also could have blown his whistle before that corner was taken. And if he did that, I wouldn't have had any complaints, because it's like, all right, we've gotten to 97 now. Like, if you decide that this corner can't be taken, like, can you really complain? He's already added an extra 2 minutes, which I thought was fair for how much sort of time wasting and injury faking was going on just in injury time alone. But yeah, Newcastle fans won't be happy with that. But I must also say, I thought Newcastle were pretty gracious in their defeat, and you could tell they were shell shocked, but they weren't remonstrating. They weren't going absolutely crazy. I think the assistant manager was just having a word, but I think they sort of knew that their tactics had backfired on them somewhat. So, but I think, like I said, I think there's a few different things you can do to sort of address the time wasting issue, especially the injury one, because that's the one that really annoys me the most.
I'd love to see goalkeepers get red carded, because all right,
you should.
Well, you know the rule of, like, when they have it in their hands, they only have 6 seconds to release it, but they're holding it.
Oh my god!
Sometimes they're holding it for like a full minute.
I know some of these goalkeepers. I think I've counted it once. One of them had it for 15 seconds. I'm like, come on, just give the indirect free kick. That's a joke.
No, but
man.
If you count it from when they catch the ball and then they drop on top of it, if you count it from the moment when they catch the ball, sometimes they're holding it for like 30 seconds plus.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
I think refs need to start booking them for that, and like early as well. Like, book them. And
well, I don't think they need to book them, but just give the indirect free kick.
Nah, just
because
just
that's what you get for that.
Nah, just book them.
But you get an indirect free kick in the box. I remember Liverpool conceded one in the Europa League when Mignolet got called for it. And it's just like, well, now goalkeepers won't do it if they're conceding an indirect free kick inside the box.
I don't know, mate.
And that is what the rule is. Well, I don't think it's not a bookable offence. It's just an indirect free kick in the box.
Well, then start doing that. But also, you know how they also take ages on the goal kicks as well. Like, they take ages.
That's the bookable. That's the bookable offence. Yeah.
But start booking them early. Start booking them in the first half even. And I think it was last year where the referees, they got together, I think after like 10 or so games, to address the handballs, because there was so many handballs occurring. I'm pretty sure it was last year. And then they basically changed the ruling or the interpretation of how they're going to start giving handballs after like 10 games, because players and managers, everyone started complaining. Because you were just getting handballs for like super silly things, and like just because it hit your hand, it was a handball. Like, it's like, well, no, there's different circumstances where it can hit your hand and not necessarily be a handball for a penalty, at least. And you're bugged out a little. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah. So why can't the refs get together, like, now? Like, they've already started seeing time wasting now. Like, after 5 games, they've obviously seen it before, in other games as well, like from last season. Get together now. Tell the managers and the players, hey, we're going to start booking early for time wasting. And we're going to start giving indirect free kicks if the goalkeeper's hanging off. They could be like, okay, 10 seconds max. But like, if you start holding it for longer and we're going to start counting it from the moment you catch the ball. So don't bother dropping to the ground and holding it for like 10 seconds there. Like, we're counting it from the moment you catch the ball, not from when you get up with the ball. So just be more harsh with it, because now you also have the statistics that are starting to come out of how long the ball has been in play for like the entire 90 minutes. And it was interesting. I think they mentioned, the Chelsea-Tottenham game, which seemed like it was end-to-end. It was exciting. You know how long the ball was in play for that game? 55 minutes.
58.
I think it was 55 or 58, but like, so that, like, just a little bit longer than a half of football. And there was another game, I think it was a Brentford game, where the ball was in play for 45 minutes. So you lost a whole half of football with the ball being not in play, like a whole half of football.
Yeah, all right. I reckon the thing that I'm actually down for at this point is just making games 60 minutes and stopping the clock when the ball's out of play. So you just play 60 minutes because you say you're losing a half of football, and 45 is excessive. But the general amount of time that you would play football, even 10, 15, 20 years ago, was about 60 minutes. It's around an hour of actual play time. So I think if you just made it an hour of play time and stop the clock when the ball's dead, that would solve nearly everything, to be quite honest. Like, why are you wasting time now? You're not wasting time. The clock stopped. So you can do it to disrupt patterns and disrupt the atmosphere. But I mean, that would deprive us of the moment that we just saw midweek, where you've got an added time goal that's down to the referee's discretion. So I don't know. It's one that I think I'd be down for. If they said that this is the way we're doing it moving forward, I would have no problems with that. I can't stand when you're watching a game and it becomes disjointed because people are rolling around on the floor and trying to waste time like that. So that might solve that. But yeah, I mean, I think we did that one last week. But yeah, it's definitely an issue. And just quickly before we move away from refs, because we didn't touch on this one. But do you remember in the Palace City game or the City Palace game, and Edison looked to distribute the ball, and Jordan Ayew put his foot out and stopped him like rolling it out? Why was that given as a free kick? Have we already forgotten about the 2018 Champions League final where Karim Benzema did exactly the same thing? Like, what are we talking about? If the goalkeeper has released the ball and he's rolled it like that, the ball's in play. So that could have been a goal. I don't know why the game was stopped for that.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's my rant from a couple of weeks that I was holding on to.
Yeah, because like there's also that same. I'm not sure what the official ruling is, but do you remember? I think it was either Henry or Ronaldinho. You know how goalkeepers sometimes like they throw it up, like so they're not kicking the ball through their hand, but they actually throw it up. And I think it was Ronaldinho. Like he just sort of like poked the ball out when it was actually thrown up. I'm not sure what the official ruling is if it's still considered within the goalkeeper's possession, even though he's thrown the ball up and he's in that kicking motion.
Yeah, no, I think that is in the goalkeeper's possession.
Yeah, but if he's rolling it out,
yeah, exactly, it's out of his possession,
and he's not actually going to kick through it as well. Then yeah, that's a different interpretation, I suppose. But yeah, it seems that everyone, all these refs, like they have their own. Like I think like 95% of the rules they agree on, in that they're all traveling on like the same train, or however you want to put it, or in the same boat. But then like that, there's that 5% of grey zone where like refs interpret things slightly differently. And this might have been one of them, or it might have even been protection for the big team, which we do see. Like I can clearly remember I was arguing with Matthias. There was a game last year. I think it was Liverpool Brighton. Van Dijk clearly pushed a player in the back. One of the Brighton players in the back in the box, and he was heading to the byline, and there was nothing given. And like the week prior, I think there was in an Arsenal game that was given as a penalty, like the exact same type of offense, and that was given. So like it's either down to the referee, or maybe it's because these big teams are getting protection.
Yeah, somewhat. But the big teams, I don't know if it's protection. They just put on more pressure, so they're in more situations for things to go their way. And for me, City were at home as well, so I think a home team should almost always get the benefit of the doubt, because I think that just plays into home ground advantage. That's how it actually should work for me, to be quite honest. Like that's why you have these intimidating atmospheres, you have these home ground advantages. But yeah, before we go into a rant about refs, I guess, was there anything else from the midweek fixtures that you wanted to review before we go into a preview?
Not really. Like the results went the way we expected them. I think we both said United,
except for Chelsea.
Except for Chelsea, yeah. Like Southampton looked, but we already touched on, I guess, sort of Southampton and Chelsea. We didn't really go into too much detail in it. Southampton looked great. Like young,
Oh, it's making
like
it's
a
making
young
that United
team.
win at St Mary's look a bit better, isn't it?
Yeah, but Southampton actually played similar to how they played against Chelsea. It's just that they couldn't finish. Like they couldn't finish. That was the difference. But like the way they actually played was very similar.
Yeah, it was the same.
Yeah, and I'm actually like the based off those two performances, I was quite impressed with how Southampton have played. I am a little bit surprised because it's Chelsea, but at the same time I'm also not surprised because they haven't. Like, they got blown away by Leeds. They dropped points against Tottenham as well. They haven't looked that great. Even in pre-season, they weren't looking great. And I'm not talking about the 4-0 defeat to Arsenal. I think, did they draw or lose to one of those American teams as well? Because and I know it's only pre-season. Like you pretty much do 11 subs at halftime, so you disrupt the team flow and everything like that, or you have the option to like sub all 11 at halftime. But even so, like they should be blowing these American teams out of the water. So they didn't even look good in pre-season. They haven't gotten off to the best start either now. A really weird team. And I think that considering they brought in Aubameyang and they brought in one more player, didn't they? Fofana as well. I think only after the World Cup we're going to start seeing them string together like multiple results. I think now up until the World Cup, I think it might take them a while to hit the ground running and find that chemistry because they have so many new additions. And also they have injuries to their midfield as well, which they didn't actually address. They didn't address their midfield, if I'm not mistaken.
They got Zachariah on loan, but
they ended up getting him.
Yeah, on the flip side though, isn't this just who Chelsea were for the second half of last season? They were inconsistent. Yeah. They lost games. They tinkered with the formation, which he did again for this Southampton game. It went to a 4 at the back as Piliqueta got absolutely exposed as a right back. So worrying signs. And I said after the Tottenham game, they've sort of put my mind at ease with the result or with the performance. But what they've done since, I mean, even the Leicester win was very unconvincing. A man getting sent off, and I mean, they did well to rally and win that game eventually, but very unconvincing, very up and down, indicative of what we saw at the end of last season, which is worrying because that's a pattern. We spoke about Tuchel, third season into a job, doesn't normally stay much longer than that at a club. All the new signings, as you say, unsettled, letting so many key players go, especially in that defence, relying on Thiago Silva at his age every 3 days. And then we were talking about all the young players at the start of the pod, but the young player we're not mentioning from Chelsea is Kai Havertz. Where's Kai Havertz? Is he meant to be a £70 million player or not? Because I haven't seen it since he's been at the club. I think he's been, for that money, pretty bang average. So he's one who needs to pull his socks up and get to work because Chelsea they're definitely in a battle for top 4. I don't see them. You can't really see them challenging for a title even at this early stage. Losing 2 games out of your first 5, and then I'm surprised you haven't taken gripe with it. But what did you think of the Villa goal from the corner against Arsenal?
There's 2 perspectives. Because I've played up front, and on those corners, I've generally taken that position to sit on the goalkeeper. But when I do that, there is always a defender pushing me in the back, trying to get me off the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
So when I saw it, I was like, the first question I had is, where is the defender? Where is the defender helping your goalkeeper? Getting that attacker at least like a foot or half a meter away from him so that your goalkeeper can actually move. On the flip side though, when I saw it from another angle, I also saw that the defender sort of wrapped, I think, his right arm around Ramsdale's back as well.
Yeah.
You can't do that. if he just had his arms sort of like spread like wide and maybe a little bit towards the back, that's fine for me. But he looked like he was actually like he had it actually wrapped around, and like he was actually like with his forehand, he was actually touching his back, so he was actually holding him. So, and what else is weird? It wasn't just in that game; it was also in the Tottenham West Ham game. It's like, how many cameras do they have for VAR? Because they just keep on going off of like this like one angle for VAR because we can touch on that one as well, the Tottenham West Ham one. But like, isn't there like 20 or 30 different camera angles that you can pick from in the stadium, not just like one or two? So like, why? And if I actually saw it, and it looks like they saw it as well, the hand wrapped around his back. Why wasn't that given then, for instance? But at the same point, I think it's more. I think I'm skewing more towards the side that Arsenal shot themselves in the foot by not putting a defender in front of Ramsdale to help push the attacker off him. So maybe the refs were like, well, that's just basic corner defending 101 that you learn in juniors. Always have a defender helping your keeper. Or even if you had a defender on the first post, he would have cleared that. You had no one on the first or second post. So I think it was more. I'm leaning more 60-40 that it was Arsenal's fault than the ref not picking up on the foul.
Yeah, you pretty much just described the struggle that I had, the internal struggle with that decision, because I thought that was probably enough to give a free kick looking at the hand position behind Ramsdale, but I also thought you've got to use a defender to get your player off the goalkeeper.
Yep.
And your goalkeeper's got to be stronger there, and he's got to. I don't know. Would the goalkeeper be penalised for sort of shoving the player out of the way? I'm not sure. I'm not sure they would, because
it's in his 6-yard box, so.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just a little bit. I think a goalkeeper would get away with that in most cases. But yeah, you pretty much summed it up with the. So I guess I want to get your opinion on what happened with the Tottenham West Ham one, because for me,
just quickly,
my opinion.
Just quickly,
yeah, go on.
There was also another incident that there was a foul on Saka where Mings actually like. He actually wrapped his hand, like Mings was behind Saka's back as Saka turned, and Mings actually like grabbed him by the stomach and then threw him down. For me, that's a penalty. I know it's probably leaning towards the softer side, but he actually like he threw him down, like he wrapped, like he did it. If he did it with two hands, I reckon the ref definitely would have given it. But the fact that he did it with one, he sort of disguised it. But you have VAR to pick up on that. So I'm not sure for you if it's a penalty. For me, it is. It's not one of those stonewall ones where like, you push a player in the back. It's one of those ones where the defender was crafty, but VAR, like I said, should pick up on it. So like I said, for me, it's a penalty, and that one was missed.
I agree that you give the referee a decision to make, and if they make the decision to give a penalty, then I think that's fair. I don't think VAR should be overturning that, because, like, we're talking about it, it's a super soft penalty, and it's just, I don't know if we should be overturning for soft penalties. And what makes it soft for me is the fact that he's already turned back, so his momentum is no longer going towards goal, and he's stopped. But Mings does do what you said, and he gives the decision to be made. So if the referee gives that, Mings only has himself to blame. But here's an instance where a penalty corner would be the perfect outcome for that foul, because that's not a foul that's leading to any dangerous opportunity. He's not going forwards. He's not taking on the man to get towards goal. He's going back. But then Mings makes a stupid foul. But is it enough for a penalty? You and I are both saying, no, it's touch and go whether you want to give a penalty for that. But maybe if you can still have a punishment like a penalty corner like they do in hockey, then you sort of have a way of still penalising it without giving the ultimate penalty, which is a spot kick, which is a 75% goal.
Yeah. But what do you have to say on the Tottenham West Ham one on that incident.
The Tottenham one, I thought they took forever,
Yeah.
but they got to the right decision. I think it looked like it hit his head and then went down onto his hand. I
Yeah.
think that angle that they were looking for, you can kind of see the ball's traveling that way, and then it deflects down, and you can sort of see his head go like, "Ooh." I'm surprised Creswell didn't make a bigger deal saying it hit me in the face first, but
Yeah.
I think they finally did. It was a weird one because you're talking about how many camera angles. To be fair, it looked like they exhausted every camera angle they had,
No,
and they couldn't find the definitive
on
the definitive
on the
footage.
feed that they had that they gave here, I think they only showed like 2 camera angles, which is I think they kept on repeating the one where the camera is goal to goal, so like the camera was facing the goal. And then the other one where it's just sort of that standard camera where the standard camera that we watch football with, they kept on repeating. They repeated that one like 2 or 3 times. But like, why was there not a camera? I think a camera on the other side. So just flip the sides. I think that one would have shown the angle better. But why isn't there more camera angles for them to view? Like, it just seems like they had like 2 or 3 camera angles and that's it.
To be fair, that's not something I normally level at any Premier League game. I think they normally have a lot of. I think this was just an incident where like there was just players always in the perfect or posts or whatever it was. They were always at a perfect angle, which meant you couldn't definitively see it. But I think they got to the right decision.
Yeah, they got to the right decision. Do they have that bird's eye camera? You know, in AFL they have like that camera that's like in the middle. It's a bird's eye.
Yeah.
Do they have that?
They have that.
They don't have.
I don't think they have that at the London Stadium. I think a few stadiums have it, but I haven't.
It's
the
stadium.
one at the Flyers, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen that one there.
Yeah, just bust out the bird's eye camera. I think that one actually would have showed the direction of travel of the ball. So that one would have showed that it actually changed direction as well. The bird's eye one.
Yeah, probably.
So, yeah. But yeah, anything else to add like that? I don't know. Results wise, I also think United were a little bit fortunate. They did seem a little bit better against Leicester than what they did against Southampton. But I think Leicester, they're lacking Vardy from 14-15. They're lacking that 30 goal or like that. Like they just seems like they can't put the ball in the back of the net. But they had some good patches, and for me the game looked relatively even.
Leicester didn't get any support to Vardy. They didn't trouble Martinez and Varane enough. It was just win the ball back and look for Vardy straight away. And it was just him 1 against 2. It was too easy to deal with. And then the goal that they concede is absolutely abysmal.
Yeah.
The ball gets cleared and indeed he just doesn't get back into position quick enough. This is what I've been talking about this season. They're soft. They're just a super soft team. And United capitalise on their one moment that they get. I agree. I don't think United have been great, but they've won 3 in a row. And they look more solid at least already, only conceding 1 goal in those 3 games. And they look more pragmatic and practical. And in terms of the tactical patterns, it's starting to look a bit more like a Bayern team, which is, of course, where Ten Hag learnt his trade, and his Ajax teams where they play the 4-2-3-1 and they attack with 4 sort of fluid attackers. Bruno was picking up a lot of pockets. Jadon Sancho can always drift in from the left. Rashford isn't really an out-and-out striker, so he'll pick up different positions. And Alanga's more your fixed winger, I guess. But they all sort of like a Bayern or what you saw from his Ajax teams. Those 4 are just looking to be fluid and looking to pick up the ball and start going forward quickly when they get the ball off the sort of 6 defensive players behind them with the 2 pivots and the 4 defenders. So it's starting to look a bit more like what I imagine he'd want it to look like. Thankfully, he hasn't gone back to trying to overplay out from the back, and De Gea's allowed to be the goalkeeper that he should be. So, again, positive things for United, winning games that they should be winning, and I'm sure they'll come up in the preview, which I'm guessing we'll hit on now if you're ready to do that.
Yeah, let's get into that. since we're talking about United, and one thing you did mention is that you're starting to see patterns of play, and like you're starting to see moments where you can be like, okay, I can see an identity with this team and how they want to play, which I haven't seen from United for quite a while now. Like it's been years and years since I saw how like a particular style and method that they want to play, and I think it will benefit them that there is a World Cup year. Actually, it probably won't, because they're probably going to have a lot of players that are going to World Cup, so he won't have time to really work on that style of play. And he also has midweek fixtures with the Europa League, something that, for instance, Arsenal didn't have last year, so they could work midweek on how they want to play. So his time is very limited in terms of how he wants them to play. But I think these players are good enough to understand it, and they don't really have any youth. There's like 2 or 3 youth players, but the rest of them are like pretty decently experienced, so they should be able to grasp the concepts fairly quickly.
Well, Sancho's still only, I think, 22, 23, and he's finally, for once, starting to play a little bit like the Jadon Sancho we saw at Dortmund. I think Anthony as well, coming in, isn't particularly old, so...
But he'll already understand that style.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just that he needs to adjust to the pace and physicality of the Premier League.
Yeah, of course. So going into this weekend, my overwhelming thought, and I'm just getting a vibe from when you're sort of looking at the fixtures, looking at what's ahead for this weekend, and wow, in just 2 hours' time, I think, around about 2 hours' time, We've got 2 derby games in Celtic Rangers and, of course, Liverpool Everton. So we start with an absolute firecracker. Then Serie A has big games this night with the Milan Derby and also Lazio v Napoli. And then you got La Liga, where the top 2 teams going into the weekend in Real Madrid and Real Betis face off against each other. Atletico play Sociedad, which is a big game for me to see who will be front runners for challenging for the top 4, because I think either of those teams could be in that discussion. Maybe, or Sociedad might be a tough one to see after they lost Isak. And also you have Barcelona against Sevilla. Sevilla absolutely must get a result to kickstart their season, and Barcelona must get a result to keep on trucking along and keep on looking like title contenders. And then even in the Bundesliga, you have the top 2 going into the weekend playing each other in Bayern and Union Berlin. So for me, the overwhelming feeling and vibe, and then we finish, of course, with Man United against Arsenal. The overwhelming feeling and vibe is we have the potential for a firecracker of a weekend, and it feels like the season might just be about to start hotting up, especially when you think Champions League in the next midweek as well. And then it's just go time, big fixtures all the time. And I guess this is the first weekend where you look and you see, wow, there's a lot of big fixtures everywhere you look in all of these leagues now.
You did miss one. Chelsea West Ham. London Derby.
It's a London Derby, but I'm not putting that in the category.
Fair enough. But
it's a huge game for Chelsea.
Yeah.
I mean, there's ramifications on all of these games now, really, when you look at it in the cold light of day. So this has the potential to be the start of the oven is preheated, and we're ready to put this season in and sort of heat it up now.
That's a good way of putting it. But I was actually thinking of buying like a massive whiteboard and then like dividing it up between like Monday to Sunday, and then writing down what games are at what time, because it just seems like there's like I told you a couple of weeks ago, I get every single big league, and I think I get some of the smaller ones as well. So I can watch literally every single game. but I just can't keep up with it. So I think I need to get like a whiteboard and even like the midweek fixtures, like I need to start like writing down what midweek fixtures there are, which ones to watch, and then that way I can sort of go. I can also go back and if I miss it live, then I can watch it the next day. But yeah, there's some massive games like this weekend. But like, did you want to continue with like obviously the United Arsenal one, and then we'll get into the Merseyside Derby, and then we'll finish off with the Milan Derby if you want.
Take me where you want to go. What do you want to start with? Take me where you want to go. What do you want to start with?
Well, we were already on United and that, so like we're already talking about how they're starting to develop their patterns of play, and they're starting to look a little bit more like a team, but they still haven't gotten that. For me, they still lack that threat and killer instinct up front, and I still think that their left and right backs can be exposed, especially when they come up against like good quality wingers. I won't really like, but then the argument will be, oh, we dealt with Salah and Diaz, but that's a Liverpool team that's struggling. So I won't really like. It was an excellent performance by United, but I still think that when they go up against an informed team, informed wingers, then I want to see them get tested, and I feel like they haven't exactly been tested yet. My only concern is that, and we spoke about this at the beginning of the season, how are Arsenal going to cope with injuries? Because Partey's out for a couple of weeks. It looks like it's like a minor muscle strain. So in order to protect him to not get injured for like the full season or half the season, we need to rest him now.
Who'd have thought Partey would get injured, eh?
Yeah.
And he's always available. He's always fit.
and then his backup in El Neni has picked up a really serious injury. I'm not sure what injury it is, but he's picked up a really serious one where I think it's a potential to be like 6 months. I'm not exactly sure what it is. So he's injured. Zinchenko's out as well. I think he has some kind of knee issue. And Odegaard limped off. Like he subbed himself off in the Aston Villa win after like 70 or 75 minutes because of ankle issues. So, and also Ramsdale had a little bit of a hamstring complaint in the game, but then he finished the game off. So, if we only had injuries, for instance, if it was only Partey, then I'd be like, okay, like it's not great, but I still feel like I'm still confident in the team going out and getting the win. But now it's Partey, it's Zinchenko, it's Partey's backup in El Neni. And Lokonga, yes, he had a great showing against Aston Villa, but it's Aston Villa, this is United. That's going to be a test. Can he put in that same showing? And also Odegaard is a doubt as well, and he's the one that links up that midfield and like the attack as well. So I was confident before the Aston Villa game that we can get the result. Now I'm like, I'd be happy if we get a draw, to be honest, because I'm not fully confident we can win with so many injuries. But I don't think United can. I don't think they can score against us. I think our defense is solid enough to deal with their threats that I don't think that they'll cause us too many issues.
We'll see about that. I think the point you were hitting on before about how your front three will match up against their defense is probably one where I see going into the game you can get more joy from that. I think they can score against you, but I think your defense is pretty good. But the thing that worries me is the Zinchenko loss, because I thought when Arsenal looked at their best was him playing as that inverted fullback, him and White. And, of course, either side of Thomas Partey, who is undoubtedly your best holding midfielder. So I'm completely there with you in terms of, and I think we said it on the last pod, because I was saying Arsenal should go into this game expecting to win. But then you quickly hit on the point about, look, they've got injuries and they've got key players missing, and we've seen that bear out in the last two games where they've really had to fight against. Fulham are turning into a pretty good team, so that's a good
I'm
win there.
impressed
But
with Fulham.
yeah, but Aston Villa aren't an especially great team that we've seen. And again, in two games, you've had to sort of really battle to get those results. And beyond that, the eye test, you can see it hasn't been as fluid as we were seeing in those opening games. So now I think, especially because the game's being played at Old Trafford as well, we've got a much more level playing field. We could see an exciting game because Arsenal's front three, like you say, and like I agree with, they could get a lot of joy from that. But at the same time, your midfield will be a lot more open than we saw early season. So if we're seeing those patterns from United where they've got a fluid front four who like to pick up the ball in half spaces and then go at the defence, then we could see something open from United like that as well. So this could be a really fun game that, depending on the result, I don't know. I don't think it'll be devastating if Arsenal lose the game because they, like you say, do have those injuries and they're playing from a position where they've won all their games up until the point. But the problem will be is that if United win the game, all of a sudden they feel like they belong right in the thick of a top four race. And, it's early enough that we could say even more. I don't think it will be even more, but definitely in the thick of a top four race. And if they play, with good intensity, good effort, and those patterns that we're seeing, then they'll feel like they're on the right track, which is sort of a point I wanted to hit on with the Liverpool Newcastle game, and I sort of hit on it anyway. But you've got to sense this moment if you're that kind of team, and you've got to sense we've got an opportunity to sort of keep a team down for a little bit longer and keep their confidence down. And Liverpool this season have been terrible with that. They missed that opportunity against United. They didn't sense the urgency and they let United breathe, and now they're breathing and they're running. And Arsenal now have a nice opportunity to go into this game and, let's keep this team down. Let's push them back down a peg and show them that, hey, we're going to be the front runners for top four. You don't necessarily belong in this conversation. So that's in terms of 4D chess and the psychological games you can play, but in a game like this, I think that's the interesting thing to see because a loss for United, particularly if they don't play particularly well, could really not push them back to the post-Brentford days, but push them back at least a step and a half in terms of especially thinking that they're a top four challenger, because then if they lose this game, all of a sudden they're 3 wins, 3 losses, and that's only 50%. So, yeah, the implications from this game will be fun to see because I think they could have, they could have big implications on how the season could turn out, really, in terms of top four.
Yeah, and also if United win, they're only 3 points behind Arsenal, who are the current league leaders.
Yep.
And it's insane, to say that, considering Arsenal have won all their games and United had started off the season by losing 2 of their games. But it's what you said, maybe this will also be a reality check for United because I don't think that they've been particularly impressive. Especially, I thought they were impressive against Liverpool, especially for the first 20-25 minutes. I told you you switch off the nameplates and you could have switched the two. You would have thought that United were playing like Liverpool and Liverpool like United, the way that it started. But against Leicester and Southampton, I don't know. I especially against Southampton, maybe not so. I saw them be more on top against Leicester, but against Southampton, I said a draw would have been a much more fairer result, and I thought that they were lucky to get away with a win. And also against Leicester, I think a draw would have also probably been fair, but I could have slightly edged it to United just because they had some instances where they looked better. But yeah, they haven't impressed me yet. But like I said, my only concern is the amount of injuries to Arsenal that could disrupt their fluidity. But it's going to be the same team, essentially, especially if Odegaard is fine. It's going to be the same team that played against Aston Villa, and they looked they looked good against Aston Villa. Aston Villa didn't particularly threaten. They only started to threaten once again in the final 15, 20 minutes after they already got their goal and after we already got our goal back to take the lead. They only started to create some chances, but in the first half they didn't. That's the way it seems. Like, we're not struggling against these teams. We're not struggling to get results. It seems that we're sort of in cruise control, to put it that way. Like, we're not, but we're also not going out and dominating teams like we did the opening like two or three games. Well, we didn't really dominate Crystal Palace, but like I thought we dominated Leicester for one. But yeah, and also Bournemouth, but that's Bournemouth, so you can't really take too much away from that. But like I said, I don't think United have. I have very little confidence in Rashford. Elanga is still a raw, unproven talent, and Sancho he's showing what he was. He's starting to show glimpses of what he was at Dortmund, but he's still not there yet. So that's why I think that they're going to struggle. Whereas, like, if I look at our front three, Martinelli, Saka, and Jesus, I have much more confidence that they can create chances and grab a goal against the back four of United. The only thing that I'll say with that one is I think the Martinez-Jesus matchup might suit Martinez more. Whereas if we had someone like Mitrovic as a plan B, I think that would give the United back four probably more issues than Jesus, just because I think the matchup will suit Martinez.
I think it will suit him, but it's still a very good player that he's trying to deal with. So I can absolutely see Jesus getting the better of him anyway if he plays really well. But this is definitely, one thing's for sure, this is definitely Arsenal's toughest test.
Yeah.
We haven't quite. Palace on the opening night was a pretty tough test, and they came out absolutely firing. The first half, they were pretty sensational, to be fair, Arsenal. But I didn't think that game panned out as tough a test as it normally does. But this one, I can see it panning out to be a really tough test, unless United just regress out of nowhere. But they're 3 wins on the bounce, so at Old Trafford, we've seen how the place, even after the Brentford result, the atmosphere, if United come out firing, it lifts pretty quickly in that place as it did against Liverpool. So I'm hoping to see that again because I want to see Arsenal challenged. I want to see what they're made of. The only disappointing thing is we don't get to see them at full strength doing it. But yeah, definitely the toughest test. Definitely, I would say the most intriguing Premier League fixture of the weekend, just given their relative positions and what it means. Any result either way, or a draw would probably, both teams will probably take a draw, but
I think Arsenal will take a draw more than United at this point.
Yeah, especially away from home with the injuries. I definitely agree with that. I think if we flip over to that's the last game of the weekend, so we'll bookend it and we'll flip to the first game of the weekend, which of course is the Merseyside Derby. There's a little bit of worry as a Liverpool supporter, particularly because Liverpool have not started games well at all. And you can't go to Goodison and start slowly because that place, this is like their Champions League final. This is the most important game of the season for Everton. It always is until there was that one season, 15 years back, where they actually topped us in the table and finished top 4. So they had a lot of big games this season. But most seasons,
that's when you won the Champions League, right?
Yeah, we finished 5th that season. But yeah, most seasons, this is their most important game. And we saw at the end of last season when they were embroiled in the relegation battle, how atmospheric Goodison and outside Goodison can be. So we can fully expect that again. I don't know, like there might be a few sort of seismic earthquakes from Liverpool and Glasgow at the same time because we've got Rangers and Celtic going on simultaneously. These places should be absolutely rocking. But yeah, a little bit of worry for a Liverpool supporter. I think Everton have been, not bad, not great, but functional this season. They look like they've somewhat turned a corner from a relegation battle last season, but the season's long, so that could change pretty quickly. But the strain that the Newcastle game would have put on Liverpool, the strain that their midfield's already under, there hasn't been a better opportunity for Everton to win a derby game at home. Well, you could say that 2021 season where Liverpool were in all sorts of trouble that season, but still finished third somehow. But with what we expected Liverpool to be, I don't think Everton would have gone into this game early in the season thinking we have a great chance to win this. But I think they have a great chance to win this game.
Yeah, but I still think it's Everton. I don't think they have the. I don't think they necessarily have the experience and the threat yet to challenge or to put up a challenge against Liverpool. But
what about the energy?
Yeah, that's the thing.
The energy from that place.
But that's what I was going to touch on. Like they say, like for derby games, form goes out the window. So, but I just don't think that the team is exactly what Lampard wants it to be yet. Like it's still in that sort of transition period. Whereas like Liverpool is a settled team, but they're just not firing on all cylinders. Like it just seems like it needs some sort of catalyst to turn the corner. Because like we keep going on like about Salah. Like Salah's been out of form since January. And once he starts firing, I think that's when you'll start seeing the rest of the team firing as well. The only worry is, is there a potential that he's down to tools and he's going down the Aubameyang and Ozil route where he picks up a big new contract and his form just goes out the window and it's just downhill from there.
The problem is Liverpool don't dominate games in the same way that they dominated games last season. So I think if you watch Mo Salah, no one's ever going to criticise him of not working to his absolute maximum, both on and off the pitch. You only have to look at his body when he takes off his shirt, which he reminds us and does every time he seems to score a goal, because he wants to remind us of how much work he puts in off the pitch and on the pitch. He's one of the only sort of superstar forwards, superstar, I guess, who really does track back and really does put in their work against the ball. You don't see your Neymars, your Messis, your Mbappes. I know that's PSG sort of culture, but this has been inbred from him even before Liverpool. That's why Liverpool would have targeted him. But then Klopp's really reinforced it. So in terms of criticising him on an Aubameyang sort of level, I will never go there until I see reasons to. But yeah, like I said, Liverpool's big problem is that midfield, and they can't control the chaos, and that's what worries me about a derby game at Goodison, because Liverpool's midfield has always been fantastic at controlling and organising chaos. Because Liverpool aren't a team who control the game through possession like a Manchester City, but they control the game by targeted sort of switches of play and then second balls, counter press, and then let's go off that. And the midfield, when it's not at full strength and it's not firing, and we can talk about the defence not being good either, and that's definitely the case as well. But the midfield just can't organise that chaos in front of them. And I fully expect a derby game at Goodison to be chaos. And that's what worries me about this game. So I get your points about Everton. I get your points about them not being exactly what they want to be. But I just think that if this game was at Anfield, it would be very different for me. But the fact that it's coming after a grueling game against Newcastle in midweek, where we really had to put everything to win that game, and we had to play for nearly 100 minutes as well. I think Henderson came off pretty early, so what kind of midfield can he even field for this game if he's not 100% right? So definitely worrying times for a Liverpool squad. Honestly, I don't know if I'd take a draw. I wouldn't take a draw. I'd still try and win the game, but a draw wouldn't be a terrible result, because I think at the moment we're just sort of hanging on and we're trying to be in amongst probably the challenges for top four at the moment, because City just look like they're far gone. But yeah, apart from that, I I don't think there's anything else from the Premier League I really wanted to touch on.
Well, just quickly, you
Yeah,
guys. I think you guys got Arthur Mello.
yeah, we did.
So,
Who is?
are you happy with that signing, and do you think he'll play,
Uh,
or is it too early?
I'm not happy with. There was like a clickbait piece that came on, so I don't know how much it was true, but there was a lot. When they take out like some tweets from some fans and they say, "Oh, we got this guy. Where did we get this guy? He's a sidewards and backwards pass merchant," and it's like, all right, cool. This is like a subsection of what Liverpool fans think. Like, it's not the most inspiring signing, but it's not the worst signing when you need numbers in midfield. He's played at big clubs. He's played at Barcelona. He's played at Juve. I worry about how he'll adapt to not only the intensity of the Premier League, but the intensity of Liverpool. I do worry about that, but he's only a loan signing. So I think given our status and where we were in terms of our midfield, and in terms of the fact that we already pretty much blew our transfer budget on Darwin Nunez, who will need to start filling those shoes and filling those boots because we invested a lot into him when we probably should have invested a bit of it into midfield. So in terms of the position we left ourselves with, I have no problems with the signing. But in terms of should we have been in that position to start with, well, there's only one guy who's going to answer that, and that's going to be Darwin Nunez in the coming weeks. So
Hey,
let's see what happens.
how does
Yeah.
how does West Ham get Paqueta, who's apparently he's like a full Brazil international, like he's actually like in the starting 11. Like,
I don't rate Paqueta that much. In all honesty,
but even so, how did they get him for like 30 mil? I think, but then Liverpool didn't even try.
No, it was 50. It was 50 for Paqueta,
I thought it was 30.
We're not paying. It was like, I don't know if it was 50 million euros, but it was 50 million.
Or is it 50?
Whatever,
is it
whatever
50 when you include
currency.
add-ons? Because I heard
it was including add-ons.
Yeah, because I heard it was like 30 or 35, but maybe it's 50 with add-ons. But even so,
even
like,
at 35, I'm not paying 35 for Paqueta if I'm
even
Liverpool.
with your midfield being in such a desperate
I'd rather get Mello on loan. I'd rather get Arthur Mello on loan, to be quite honest, and save that money and kick it down the road until we really target who we really want, because I doubt that Paqueta's the guy that they really wanted.
So, having said that, like, we'll end on this, on the Liverpool part, on the Merseyside Derby. Who starts in your midfield then if Henderson doesn't start? Like, who's your midfield three?
I guess it's Harvey Elliott, it's Fabinho, and
Milner or Carvalho?
He'll probably go with Milner for the experience, but that worries me. I would love, if we didn't have a centre-back crisis at the moment, I'd love to finally see Trent play in there, but look, it's white knuckle time in terms of that midfield for Liverpool. It's a hairy situation at the moment, and we don't go into games fully confident in that midfield, especially the way we play.
Seems like Arsenal and Liverpool are sort of sharing the same experience of like midfielders getting injured at the moment.
Yeah, but at least you guys are playing well around that, and when you had a full strength team, you looked good.
Yeah, but still, I can feel your pain. at least in terms of the injury front.
Well, moving along from that very swiftly, before that pain starts to come through again. I think the last place that we should probably finish on is, for me, somewhat the start of the Serie A season, or not start, but the hotting up, the real crux of it. And we got a Milan Derby, 1v2 from last season. Inter Milan really, I don't know if you saw, if you haven't seen it, check out the Barella goal from midweek, the first one the second goal in Inter's 3-1 win. Fantastic volley. But like I said, from sort of a review from last time, Inter look like they should be the best team in Italy. I think they are in a situation after the Lazio loss where they really can't afford to lose this derby. Milan have a really big chance to sort of put the knife in a little bit, even though Inter are actually above Milan because Milan have already drawn 2 games. But if they can make them lose 2 games already, the margins become very fine for Inter for the rest of the season because they say traditionally champions can't afford to lose more than 5 games. I think that's kind of how it will play out in Italy because I don't think you'll get one team who only loses 1 or 2 all season. I think it'll be more like a 4 or 5 for the team who ends up champions. So if you burn 2 of them in your first 5 games, you're really behind the 8 ball. And then all the impetus goes to Milan from there on in, who sort of snatch that from you. They remain undefeated. They go above you in the table, and you can start rolling from that. So I think it's a more a must not lose for Inter. I think it's time Milan need to sort of start to show something as well because they're the same team from last season, but they've lost Frank Kessie in midfield. But they need to start maybe showing some goals. Rafael Leao was Serie A player of the season last season. He needs to have some end product because he's doing his sort of Sam Maximan impression where he's all talent, all show, but the end product isn't quite at the level where it should be if he wants to go to the next level. So this is a really intriguing fixture. And like I said, I think for me, the real start of the title race in Serie A, and it will start to sort of shape up after this, as it will with the Lazio-Napoli game on the other side, because they're 2 sort of fringe contenders. So if one of them could grab a win over the other one, then this whole Serie A season starts to take more shape because, like I already said, we've already seen in the table that all those contenders and semi-contenders, they're all near the top of the table. So this league is already starting to take shape, and we'll know a lot more after this weekend's fixtures. And it's a Milan Derby, which is always fun. So looking forward to that one, no doubt.
Yeah, hopefully this will be my, I guess, introduction to start watching Italian football a little bit more because I haven't been ignoring it, but I've just been like I said, I'm overwhelmed with my options, and I obviously prioritize the Premier League. But then when teams are versing like middle of the table, lower table teams, then like it doesn't interest me at all because like some of these Italian teams, like I've never heard of them. So I'm just like, what's the point in really watching that game? Whereas like with the Premier League, I'm like, if it's like United Leicester, like I'll watch that because Leicester were champions like 7-8 years ago, and they're still a decent team, but they're going through a rough patch at the moment. But yeah, like hopefully I'll try to make a little bit more of an effort to watch some Italian football, and that will start tonight. I think it's like a 6:30 p.m. kickoff, if I'm not mistaken, European time. So that should be that's prime time for me.
Yeah, exactly. Once you're done with the Premier League, just go over to that.
Yeah, how do you?
Yeah, that's a good place to start.
How do you think that game will shape up? Like, who do you think will take the win?
It's hard to say. These teams have been as sort of unflattering as each other. They haven't been special, either of them.
Who's the home team? Who has home crowd advantage? Actually, it is a thing, home crowd advantage.
Yeah, because you get more supporters.
Yeah, because I think it's actually like allocated for season ticket holders or whatever for whoever the home team is. Like I think they get like 70 or 80% of the crowd or whatnot.
Milan are the home team, so look, I honestly see a draw. I can't really separate these 2 teams. I think the best version of Inter is better than AC Milan, but I thought that last season, and they weren't able to get the job done. So, yeah, I think a 1-1 draw if I'm going to put a prediction on it, but honestly, it could go either way.
All right. I think I'll pick I'll pick AC because they have a bit of a special place in my heart from when Kaka used to play for them. So I'll be going for them tonight. But do you have anything else to add on that, or should we just finish off with a couple of Premier League predictions? We'll exclude
Yeah, go on.
Liverpool.
Let's get the crystal ball out.
Yeah, we'll exclude Liverpool because you don't like predicting them. So we'll just do Chelsea West Ham. Chelsea at home.
Chelsea 1-0.
Okay. Wolves Southampton should be a pretty exciting game. I reckon that one could be a good game to watch.
Wolves 2-0.
Okay.
Wait, are you giving predictions?
I reckon West Ham could edge Chelsea 1-0, to be honest.
They could, definitely.
I reckon I'm going to go for West Ham in that fixture. I reckon they'll get the win. Man City will smash Aston Villa. Do you think Haaland gets another hat-trick?
No.
No? You reckon the run ends?
No.
All right. Just with that one...
How ridiculous is that? This is the question we're asking going into the game. Will Haaland get another hat-trick?
But with that one as well, I think Aston Villa's fixtures... I think they have Man City and then they have someone else. I think they might have Liverpool or something in a week or two. So they have like 2 or 3 fixtures where it's like tough fixtures. Do you think Gerrard gets sacked in the next 2 or 3 weeks? Or do you think Aston Villa stick with him at least until the World Cup?
I would have said no, but I mean, Bournemouth sacked Scott Parker after 4 games, so... And Villa haven't been impressive. And Stevie G is absolutely...
I reckon he's lost the dressing room.
He's shown a Klopp-like level of inflexibility in terms of tactics. Because that Christmas tree, it doesn't work. It's very pie-in-the-sky stuff. It can maybe work for 20-minute spells, but it can't work for a whole game. And Arsenal were exposing it over and over again. And if they try and play like that against City will batter them. So maybe Haaland... Well, I say no, Haaland won't get a hat-trick. Maybe I'm saying that because I think he'll get 4 or 5. But, yeah, Gerrard will definitely be under pressure if City batter him tonight and if Liverpool beat them as well. There's no doubt about that.
I actually think that Lampard is going to last at Everton longer than Gerrard at Aston Villa.
Well, the way it's looking now, yeah.
Yeah. But with that, though, like... Do you think Gerrard's lost the dressing room as well because of the whole Tyrone Mings fallout and all that?
I honestly, I haven't looked at Villa closely enough in terms of their body language and read the stories and stuff. All I've seen is the football, and I think, look, one thing I can say is I thought the players looked fairly committed against Arsenal. I didn't think it was a tools down thing, but I thought tactically you got it completely wrong. And the balance of the team doesn't look right, and Villa just don't look very good.
Yeah, they there's something missing from them. Like they don't have that connection yet, and there's maybe that's a confidence thing as well. Because like people were like 2 or 3 years, at least when Grealish was there, people were saying that they could be top 4 challengers within like a year or two with like another 2 or 3 transfer windows, and now they're seeming like relegation candidates.
That season where they beat us 7-2, I think was their highlight of being back in the Premier League. That season, I think they finished like 8th or something. Yeah. They were pretty good.
And we actually didn't give a prediction for United Arsenal.
I'll go with 1-1.
I'm gonna go for a 2-0 Arsenal win. I just think that I don't think that United have the threats to score against Arsenal because Arsenal's defense, if you look at the goals that have fallen, against Fulham, it was a mistake. Against Aston Villa, it was a mistake. The one of 2 against Leicester was a mistake as well. It was an own goal. So
do United even need the threats? If Arsenal are making this many mistakes,
yeah, but
that's the counter proposition.
But what I'm saying is, we're not being carved open like we were last season or 2 seasons ago or whatever. So the teams aren't creating that many chances against us. So they're coming through our own volition. So once we clean that up, then we're going to start holding clean sheets. But like you also look at Man City. Man City aren't holding clean sheets either. So they're leaking goals as well. But I do think that we'll hold this one. I reckon we'll get this one 2-0. Especially if Odegaard plays. If he doesn't play, I think it might just be like a. I think it might be a draw then if he's missing, because I'm not sure where that link will come from the midfield to attack.
Yeah, if he's not playing, I would say United will win the game.
I don't think they will win. I don't think they will win.
It's well established how low you are on United. I think the last 3 weeks have been positive, but I'm not ready. I'm not ready to shout off the rooftops at how good United are. But I do think that they, I wouldn't say have turned a corner, but they've certainly been better in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah. And you know what? Screw it. Let's give a Liverpool-Everton prediction.
I can see a 2-2.
A 2-2.
Yeah.
I don't know. I reckon that like last minute win is going to give you guys immense confidence. And I can see it being a hard fought 2-0 win. Also, if you're down for it, since we've like introduced the whole predictions thing over the last couple of weeks, maybe we start like sort of do what AFTV do, where you pick like 3 or 4 games from the weekend, and it's 3 points for an exact result, 1 point for the result, and then like at the end of the month, I don't know, some kind of like bet or something like that, or we try to keep track of it. If you're down for introducing a little bit of competitiveness into the pod.
Yeah, all right, I'm down.
All right, we got to think of like some kind of bet to do. Like maybe you have to wear an Arsenal shirt or something, or I have to wear a Liverpool shirt. But that means I have to go and buy one as well, which I'm not buying an
Arsenal shirt.
All right, yeah, we got to think of something to do that's cost effective and not absolutely humiliating. Like I'm not going to shave my head, for instance. Like that's a good one. The apparel of the other club, we just need to find something somewhat reasonably priced. Because shirts nowadays are way too expensive. Yeah, but like you might be able to, like, you know how you have like the op shop and like say those secondhand shops and stuff.
Yeah,
like that.
true.
You might be able to find an Arsenal shirt for maybe like $10 or $15.
Yeah.
But like I don't know where that exists here. So like I don't know where I can find. Maybe online if someone's selling one, then maybe I can find it. But it's going to be difficult for me to find one. So I don't know. We'll think of something. Maybe you can
just get your predictions right, and then it's all good.
maybe you can shave that beard.
Nah, that's not happening.
That's the moneymaker right there.
That's not happening.
Shave it live on the pod.
No.
Well, on that note, do you have anything else to add, or?
No, I'm happy with where we're at. And bring on this weekend of football, because this is where it hots up.
Yeah, you know what? I'm actually playing on Sunday. I'm playing at the exact same time that Arsenal kick off, so I'm gonna have to rewatch the game when I get back home. Hopefully, none of those bastards ruin the game by just like
no spoilers.
Hopefully, they don't just split. Oh, did you see the result? Or the man, someone like this team is dominating. Like holy shit. So like, I need to like in the dressing room. When I get there, I need to just tell everyone, hey, just drop that. Just go 7.
The dangerous thing is if you do that, there might be one asshole who's just like gets a little bit annoyed at you in the warm-ups or during the game.
Yeah,
it's like, hey.
Yeah, just go full on Samuel Jackson on them. Just like, hey. But maybe that goal that I gave last week, maybe that's given me a little bit of clout. Like I told you, a little bit of clout for them to have an ounce of respect for me, considering I'm a new player of the team. For them to be like, oh look, Nev, yeah, he's a good guy. Let's not ruin the result for him. So fingers crossed.
Good luck with that one. Yeah.
Maybe if I bang in another goal, then maybe they'll be like, all right, yeah, let's give him this little present. let's not ruin the game for him, so he can watch it, without, as if he was watching it live. Yeah. Anyway, we'll end it on that note. So, Caleb, hopefully our two teams get the win, and hopefully there's some exciting football for us to review come Monday or Tuesday. We'll see when we do it.
And preview the Champions League, which I can't wait for. That's going to be good.
And hopefully I'll be able to get tickets for the Dinamo-Chelsea game. So fingers crossed for that. Hopefully that doesn't get sold out within a couple of minutes. So I'm going to just be refreshing the page. So yeah, we'll do a review of all the derbies that happened, and also a preview of the Champions League finally. So that should be pretty juicy. So for all those listeners, thanks for coming, and bye for now.